I'm probably at the tip of the spear when it comes to what these grading companies reject and what they accept. My wife thinks I'm crazy, by the way. It's a Topps Chrome Pokemon card. I've been just kind of, again, pushing the limits here. And why are people doing this? Because they're making money, baby.
Welcome to Hobby Nonsense. It is your boy, Sports Boy, with the fellow best co-host in the world.
I am the best co-host in the world. We are here via internets. We have survived the snowpocalypse of 2026 here in Middle Tennessee. Jesse has run out of food. He is currently surviving on cashews and corn nuts.
Corn nuts are far gone. My daughter ate all the. She loves corn nuts. We wouldn't have a single corn nut left if that was the case. Here's a question: who eats corn nuts? I don't know of anybody who actually eats corn nuts besides myself. Apparently, Ray does, since he knows all about them.
I only see them at the gas stations, and I think to myself, who the heck eats these things? Because every time I have corn nuts, they're extremely hard.
Here's the thing: it's funny you even said corn nuts, because we were literally looking for a generator at like 5. I think we got to Home Depot 5:30 Saturday morning, and when they finally opened, we were walking around, and my daughter's like, "Oh, you know what? I haven't had in a long time? Corn nuts." And so like we're walking around Home Depot looking for some, and she unfortunately never got them. So it's weird that you bring that up right now, because we never talked about that.
Come on.
Stop following me. Anyways, Ray Solorio, man, the myth, the legend. We guys, it is going to be a little bit different show, but for those who are listening, I apologize. Audio is not, normal, perfect podcast quality audio, because we're both at our home studios doing all of this. But it is going to be a fun experience nonetheless. We're in our home environments. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see a lot of like the personal collections of both Ray and myself. Granted, Ray's is much more extensive, and the variety on those shelves is just the Bill, Mario. I'm seeing a lot of like, is that Ninja Turtles? But what you have on your shelves, Ray?
I don't have anything Ninja Turtles, so I'm interested to see what.
I don't know what I'm seeing. What are the smaller figures? Well, it doesn't. You know what? We can't do all of it now. But either way, we are both at our homes. As the snow has kind of left me personally, I have not driven out of my driveway in my own vehicle since Saturday morning when the snow first started. It wasn't the snow that got us, guys. If you're hearing this and you're like, "Oh, snow, what's the big deal?" Snow's not the issue.
Ice.
It's the ice. We got over half an inch, I think closer to an inch of ice, and the ice.
Granted, Jesse does live like in a huge property. Mr. Moneybags has this like 40 acres on a hill. On a hill, and
it is on a hill. That is the problem.
And he can't get anywhere because he lives out in the sticks.
Well,
there's 40
some
acres.
Of that, there's truth in a little bit of what he said there, but yes, the hill is the biggest part, and the driveway is iced over. Dude, literally an hour and a half ago, I was out there with a blowtorch. I'm talking like from Home Depot. They've got these things that you connect to a propane tank, and you can just blowtorch whatever you want. I think a lot of people use it for killing weeds. I was using it for melting the ice on my driveway so I can try and get down it later.
I can't see that being good for your driveway. Is that not going to mess up your driveway? Blowtorching your driveway?
No, it's concrete. How did you just do that, bro? Okay, for those who are watching on YouTube, you're getting a show. For those who are listening, you're just listening to me talk as Ray is not talking. That's all the only difference you just got right there. But anyway, so all that being said, we're kind of trapped in our homes. We're going to do the Hobby Nonsense show from here. We've got a few different topics to discuss. I will say, I think Ray's going to be the more prepared of the two of us. I've got a few stories, and we do have a guest. This guest is going to be interesting, actually, because this is actually, before we talk about it, I'll hit with a few things that I wanted to talk about. Ray, you hit with that, and then let's talk about our guest for a second. So our guest is Josh of Pokemaster Center. He's going to be joining us. He is a big Pokemon guy. He does a lot when it comes to the restoration of cards. That is where there's going to be some interesting conversation to be had. Other than that, we also have the Logan Paul Golden Break Pokemon, that first box. What is it? The first edition box. Did you see
You,
$1.4 million that was spent on that on the packs alone for that break? So we'll talk a little bit about that. There's a new Marvel sticker product, but it's not coming from Topps. We have a record sale on a President card, and then there's a lawsuit around Magic the Gathering. So I've got a few things
ooh,
to talk about there. All right, so our guest is going to join us in 10 minutes. The only reason I wanted to talk about this just for a second is I do want to find out Josh, like his content. He actually reached out to us about coming on, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk to somebody who does this restoration of card work because there's a lot of controversy around it. I, for one, I think I'm probably a little bit more on the conservative side a lot of times where it's like, how much work is done before it's considered altering the card, like before you're basically doing trimming and things like that. I know some of the work it looks like he has done looks like it may not have, like, PSA knew that that card had been restored in the way that he's doing it. I don't know if they would necessarily grade it, but I am curious to see what he's got to say about the subject, what others, because I'm also very curious what the Pokemon community views this as, because in the sports card world, I think it's a much more conservative viewpoint than in the non-sport slash Pokemon TCG world or community. What would you say? What are your thoughts on that, Ray?
I think that adding color, anything that necessarily changes the, I don't know, I'm trying to find the proper word to say it, but I don't see anything wrong with the card being cleaned. But if you're trimming the card, if you're adding or taking away color, anything that, I don't know, like what would be the,
Well, I guess like it's a I think when you looked up the beforehand, you said like something about PSA's rules on it, where like not adding or taking away from the card.
adding or removing material, and it says, or any way manipulating the card for a better grade. That's exactly what it says.
Yeah, so I mean, manipulating a card for a better grade. Like if my card has like a bunch of like dust spots on it and I send it off to get graded, it's going to come back a lower grade than if I had just taken a fiber cloth and wiped those dust spots off. So I don't know. It's like that's like a different definition, right? For different people. Now, what
Yeah,
if it's like, oh, well, this one had like some mold spots on it because it's so old, but we were able to get that off without damaging the card. So now we can get a higher grade. I think that again, that's something that would probably be more acceptable. What about if it's like there's some white edges on the card that we can like get some sandpaper and kind of clean off? Then I think you're
that's,
starting to get in
yeah,
more into like that area where not everyone would be okay, but others definitely are okay with that. Then you've also got like where there's cards separating, like where there's some separation and you got like a little bit of glue that they'll put in there. That definitely is like adding
that's,
something to the card. That is definitely not okay for PSA or for a lot of people as far as what they view restoring cards to be. So again, yeah, this is something I'm interested to talk with him about to see, not necessarily a promotion of doing this, but more of a, hey, let's talk about where this falls in the TCG side of the world and just in general. So,
mhm.
but that being said, did you see we've talked about Logan Paul so much lately, it's kind of getting
before
upsetting.
before we get to that point, I did want to bring this up when we're talking about the card restorations. I can't remember, real quick. There was a video out of a former PSA employee, and the question was asked, "How long does it take for someone to look over a card?" They said it's less than a minute to look at a card and grade it. So maybe some of that stuff that we talked about kind of goes by, they don't notice it as much because they're rushing through grading the card. So I think that's what happens.
I would be surprised if you're wrong. I think that is if they because you think about how many cards they get, like how many cards get submitted, how
Hmm.
many people can work for them doing this job, and then how many cards they need to go through in order to keep up with demand. I think there's a lot of cards that are holder or that get graded that probably slip by. But at the same time, I also see a lot of people getting cards back that say altered in some way. So they definitely still catch some of them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to hear his point of view. But yeah, $1.4 million was spent on because he basically did this. Logan Paul did a break on Golden, or he's going to be doing a break on his YouTube channel. But the packs were sold on Golden auctions individually, and they were auctioned off. The total cost of those packs, which I believe, do you remember, Ray? Is it 24 or 36 packs in a
36?
So 36 packs in there, sold for $1.4 million.
The auction's already ended.
Yeah,
All of
my
them.
understanding is the auction's over. Now, what I saw over the weekend was Ken Golden was out there advertising how you should go out and buy these breaks, buy one of the packs, because not only are you getting the pack, but you're also getting the advertisement that goes with it. You get to advertise.
Did we buy one?
So here's the thing: if we were like 10
That's
grand,
a no, guys.
If we were 10 grand or under,
what was the average one that sold?
So
the average amount.
If it was $1.4 million, then the average cost was close to $40,000 a pack. Insanity. It doesn't make sense in any real world, because I can tell you this, like I watch my fair share of YouTube, different parts of social media. Ryan Trahan is one of my daughter's favorite YouTubers. We were watching him as he traveled to all 50 states. So anyways, Ryan Trahan goes to all 50 states. He's like doing it for charity, so it's getting a lot of play, but it's also like entertaining to watch. At the end of each episode, everybody who makes a charitable donation, he reads off both their donation. If it hit, I think it was like over 5 or 10 grand, he would read not only their name, but the little message that came with it. People were finding, oh, we're getting like a lot of advertising, because there's some of these videos got, I think, over 3-4 million views. So you're getting a lot of people seeing your little advertisement at the end of these episodes. And so I think that's a similar idea here, where it's like, hey, you get a famous YouTuber that's going to open a very popular box of something. We're going to sell this as not only you're getting the cards and maybe hitting like a huge multi-$100,000 card, but also at the same time, you can advertise your business or whatever else you want at the same opportunity. My thought is, I don't think it's worth $40,000 any way you split it. I maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think $40,000, unless you do hit that Charizard, I think everybody else is going to walk away a little disappointed. But it also just has a dirty feeling to me. Like, I just feel like we are way overvaluing the packs, the values of these cards. But I guess like it's okay in some people's eyes, because you're doing it and you're getting something besides just the cards. You're getting like that marketing aspect to it. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just too sensitive of it. I've never been like a huge Logan Paul fan to begin with, so maybe there's a little bias. But in general, I think it feels a little dirty.
Just for context, the first Logan Paul box that was auctioned off back in 2020, the average pack cost was $11,000 each. And to your point, just how many viewers it was live, there was an average of 300,000 viewers during his box.
Dear Lord, that isn't 300,000 was the average. That's crazy. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they're, whoever spent almost $40,000 on a pack, I hope they get their value. I really do. But it just seems like, I don't know. We're getting deeper into the area where this is not for collectors anymore. This is just more for, hey, how can I make the most money? And I get it, because people are in this to make money too. But the more we delve into that side and we emphasize that side of the hobby, I think the less pure collectors are going to be involved. And you have to have that to sustain a business to begin with, let alone to enjoy something that was supposed to be entertaining. So yeah, I'm not necessarily a big fan of it, but I did figure we'd talk about it for a second.
But you still you have to remember the chances of you pulling a fresh first edition Charizard that could possibly get a PSA 10 is super high, and that card's a $500,000 card and a 10. So you got to think about it that way too. Yeah.
If he pulls it and it's going to have like the Logan Paul collection or something, whatever PSA is going to put on the label, that will just increase its value as well. For whatever reason, I do understand why it's doing it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. But yeah, so I do get like there's somebody's going to walk away feeling pretty good about it all. But I think there's probably going to be a lot of people who are like, "Oh, my plumbing business didn't take off after I spent $40,000 on a Pokemon pack. This is baloney." I think that's
I'm
going
curious.
to be happening.
I'm curious to see once we watch this live, who are the people that are purchasing. We can take a look. I think last time I remember specifically Gary V purchasing one, and a couple other big known creators, but nothing that really comes to mind besides Gary V. So I'm just curious to see which people will actually purchase these said cards.
I am very curious myself. I guess we'll find out here in the next few days. Do you know when it is?
February 15th.
February 15th. So 2.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks from now. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be more to come on that story as it develops. I also have a thing about Marvel stickers. Now our guest is supposed to be here any minute now. I don't see him yet. So I think we got time for this. So
This is interesting.
yeah, do you know about this? Have you seen anything about this?
I don't know anything, but for myself, I'm not a fan of the stickers. I don't like any sticker. I don't like the VFriend stickers. I don't like anything with stickers.
So I've never been a big sticker guy, but what's funny is I did the podcast over with the Third Down guys out of the UK, and that was like one of the first questions we talked about was like, was I ever like a big sticker guy? Because that's where a lot of guys who are now our age over there got their start, was collecting like soccer stickers. It's different in that part of the world than it was here necessarily. That all being the case, from what I've noticed is that stickers seem to be a different licensing and or copyright, whatever, however this works. When Topps went out and they got the license for, say, Gary V's V Friends cards, they got the license to make cards of V Friends. Now, they did not apparently get the license to make stickers of V Friends because Gary V is making all these sticker products of those cards. Now, granted, those stickers just so happen to be the exact same shape and size of a card, but it's kind of like their way of getting around that copyright a little bit. Well, Topps went out and they also got the licensing for Marvel, as we all know, in this last year. They're the exclusive license maker of top Marvel cards in the US. But I guess they don't have the Marvel sticker license because Panini has put out that they are selling a Panini Marvel Deadpool sticker collection. I bought a box of it. It's at $60.
Wow.
I'm very curious to see what this looks like. But I was like, how are they making this? And then I realized, oh, these are all stickers. And so I'm wondering if we see more of this, like where people are going out that are wanting to make cards and they're buying the sticker license as opposed to the card license. And that's how they're going to try and work their way around, because it's, if you can't, beat them, you got to find a way around that rule. And then I'm Panini. It's like, I got to do whatever I can to stay relevant. So I'm very curious to see where that goes.
That's interesting. Now, do you know, you were talking about the Third Down guys and you were talking about stickers. What is the record sale of, what's the Grail sticker? I'm sure it's a sports card, but I didn't know if you knew that off the top of your head. Like, is it a Messi sticker, if it's a Ronaldo sticker?
Yeah, I have literally zero idea, but I would
just to compare the two price points between a sticker and a said trading card.
Well, but you can look at all like the V Friends stickers that came out in that first release, and a lot of those sold multiple thousands of dollars. I think some of them sold in the 5 figures even. So it's like there are stickers that sell for quite a bit. I don't know what like some of the early soccer stickers did, but I know there's some popular ones out there that are still getting chased, because obviously that was a big part in Europe, like big collectible in Europe was were the soccer stickers. So I have to imagine there's some that hold higher values, but yeah, I'm not sure as far as records go.
Do we know of any non-sports sticker releases that have occurred recently? Like, we know Garbage Pail Kids stickers, but besides the V Friends, has there been any other sticker products that have come out in the non-sports world? And I feel like you said, this is a good way to kind of go around the copyright and get it, which I'm so super surprised that Topps didn't also sign that exclusivity of not only can we make the trading cards, but let's go ahead and, like, you know how people buy up companies just so the other company doesn't
Oh yeah, I often
compete against them, things like
I
that.
thought about that too. I don't know if they thought about it or if they thought it would be worth it, you know, because I'm curious like what the cost of it would
Uh,
be and if they even thought it was like something they needed to do. It could be something that was missed, or it could be something they were like, yeah, they can do that, whatever. Like people are going to chase the cards either way. So yeah, there's a few questions I've got as far as that goes, but obviously we're seeing, I think the V Friends one is the sticker that I'm thinking of. In most of the, by the way, the stickers for Garbage Pail Kids, those cards are not stickers. They look like they're still supposed to be stickers. It says like peel on them, but I from my experience you can't actually peel
some
them.
of the vintage ones are
Yes, the
stickers.
vintage ones, but like the newer
Yeah,
stuff
the
it's
vintage
not.
ones, not the new. Yeah,
Yeah, but
not the new
it's
ones.
but yeah, that's the thing. Other than the V Friend stuff, I don't know what is actually like being produced on sticker other than like some. I think Panini still does some stickers. Obviously, they're doing these Marvel stickers. I don't know who else is doing it besides them though.
If you watch one of our latest reels on Instagram, I opened up a vintage pack of Alf, and there was a sticker card in
Oh,
there.
was there real? Well, that's the thing. A lot of that junk wax will have sticker cards in there, like
Mm-hmm.
the Back to the Future 2 early 90s Tops product. They've got some of those are stickers as well. So yeah, granted, none of them stick anymore. If you take it off, you're basically just ruining that card. Don't do it if you want to get your card graded. Leave it on the sticker.
And don't eat the gum.
And well, yeah, don't eat. I mean, you can if you don't. If you're like trying to clear yourself out, like intestinally, you can do it. 'Cause I did.
Yeah, that just remind me, back in the day, wrestling cards were sticker cards. Some of them were sticker
Oh, were they
cards.
really? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Maybe we're going to see a resurgence in sticker cards that are really just cards that also have an adhesive
yeah.
on them just to get around licensing rules. I honestly would not be surprised.
That is interesting, especially with the popularity of non-sports and trading cards in general. Because the old V Friends, the last V Friends release did have a Curry auto, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a big chase. It was like the dual.
Yeah.
Either you could get the cards that had just the Curry Auto, or you can get the dual with Gary V and Curry on them. So, and
Mm-hmm.
then Gary V actually is going to be coming on the podcast here in the next. We're going to have the interview done next week, but it may not be till the following week till it gets released. But he's going to be talking about the new spectacular sticker set that they've got coming out. So I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
mind talking to him a little bit about that side of things as well. I'm very curious if he has some additional insight as to other sets, maybe more modern even, that do stickers. So hey, all that being said, our guest has been waiting patiently for the last few minutes.
Oh,
I'm going to go ahead and bring Josh on with us from Pokemaster Center.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, my kids really got into Pokemon, right? And I was like, hey, I got my childhood binder. Let's go take a peek at it, right? Yeah. So thank you to my parents, by the way, for not throwing it out, because I hear that so much. It got lost in there, it got stolen, or I gave it to my cousin, whatever. I went to grade them because my dad used to be into sports cards. I remember walking into sports card shops in the like 90s, and there'd be bidding walls where people would walk up. It was the old school eBay. They would write the price they'd be willing to pay for all these cards sitting on the wall. And I took really good care of my cards. And I got back like fives and sixes. And I'm like, no, something's wrong here. So I started looking at the cards and I'm like, oh, this has an indent. Oh, this has a weird bend. And I'm like, there's got to be a way to fix this, right? I didn't even know, by the way, at this time that people hate altering. And so I kind of just, there was only two people out there talking about this. There was Kurt and there was Rocket Collect. And Rocket Collect didn't have much information, but he did show before and afters. But Kurt was really kind of the godfather with the humidor process and introducing humidity and then pressing the card essentially, which pressing I feel like is a dirty word. It could be, say, flattening, whatever. Make a long story short, I was getting much better grades. And I'm like, hey, I'm onto something. Why isn't anybody sharing tutorials or talking about this, right? So I created an Instagram. I shared a little bit of kind of my experiments, and it just went viral. It just went insane, but without its fair share of two splits of the hobby. One side of being very interested in what I'm doing, and then the other side of I want to find where you live and, attack you, violently. Keep Keyboard warriors. Every time I meet people in person, I love what you do. Can you take a look at this card? I've had vendors run up to me. Can you fix this real quick? I've literally fixed cards at the show the same day. They've sold it the same day. And mind you, it's simple things like, let's say, a lifted edge on a card, right? Like, so something as simple as just like an edge being slightly lifted up can affect your grade. And really, it's just a matter of, pushing it down. But God forbid you touch the card.
There is, and I think you're right. I think there's absolutely gray areas because there's some people that would say do anything to a card. Cleaning a card is too far. Like it is what it is. But other people would give you some more lenience. Like cleaning up a card is okay if you're gonna do maybe like a little water in a fiber cloth. Okay. But then when it starts to
Mm-hmm.
come to like the pressing or like the cleaning of edges where it's like, oh, okay, do you have to like sand off like a little of the cardboard residue on the side or whatever the case may be? It's like that is where I can see people getting a little bit more irritated. And then there are some, I don't know if you do this or not. Do you do like any of like gluing or anything like that, adding of other products to the card to make it better in any way?
Yeah, so I'll just give you a quick rundown of my opinion on this. And by the way, it's an opinion, right? Everybody has their own ideas on this. Anytime you're introducing something foreign to the card, it's altering. Bottom line, right? Like you're coloring the card, if you're gluing the card, that's altering. So those things like coloring, trimming, or adding like glue, I think are hard no's for me. I uh, hard nosed in the sense of I won't grade it and I won't sell it. I have done experiments personally of doing crazy things like rebacking and just trying to understand the process. Because, for example, I got a card in from a client that the whole thing was being lifted. And as I inspected the card, I realized somebody added glue to this was rebacked, right? So I had to tell the client, hey, sorry, whoever you bought this from, like attempted to do a reback on this. So uh there are kind of levels to this. I think simple things like fixing edges, like even flattening the card in some sense very lightly, I think should be okay. However, when you're getting insane things like rosin presses or even things like this heat press over here, right there, that's where it starts to get a little gray. Mind you, I do it, and I've been getting insane grades from it, but we don't know the long-term effects of these things too. So if you overdo it, I always like to go light at first. But if you overdo things like for example, have been seeing people introducing a ton of humidity into a card but not drying it properly, and the card starting to bubble in the slab, meaning they didn't dry the card right, and so the whole front starts to bubble up and like basically layer separation, right? So that's where like it is. I can see the grading companies disdain for what I do because you do have people doing sloppy work, and it being a serious problem, right?
I guess like so Ray had pulled up before we started the pod today. He had pulled up like what PSA's guidelines were, and it said essentially adding or removing any material from a card. But what you're saying is not adding or removing in most cases. It sounds to me that's what it sounds like, because it sounds like if you're trying to like use humidity to work out any bumps or anything like that in there, that's not adding or removing anything to the card. If you were to like just clean a card, like Kurt's Card Care, a lot of people you will use that. You obviously have your own methods, but I think most people would be fine with like cleaning of a card, so long as you're not using like some kind of like crazy foreign solutions. And PSA said like, hey, we can detect a lot of that stuff. So in my mind, is there necessarily like if you were to do your service for what you're describing, what is it that like say a PSA or another grading company would say, no, that's not acceptable? Or is there anything?
By the way, I've done it. I'm probably at the tip of the spear when it comes to what these grading companies reject and what they accept, as far as like an insane amount of experiments. I have gone totally, my wife thinks I'm crazy, by the way. But like, once I started actually making decent money from this, she's like, okay, fine, I'll accept it. Right. But at first, us being nerds when we're explaining stuff to, significant others, it's like, believe me, I'm onto something. Right. But so there's things like card spray, right? There's Kurt spray. I have basically a simple formula here, nothing insane, right? Distilled water is the key to, like, if you're a super purist, literally just breathing on the card too, or using light distilled water along with your basic microfiber. I've talked to PSA graders who do that. They'll huff on a card, they'll put distilled water. They do that. It's accepted. Now, something like Kurt spray, which is more witch hazel, or something like this, which has some isopropyl alcohol, right? It's very, very light, but bottom line, it does, I think, this especially is okay. Where you start to get into organic material, it's okay, but we don't know the long-term effects of it, which is why PSA is like, hey, is this going to cause yellowing on the card over time and things like that. Now, where it gets really gray area is when we start to venture into these sorts of things, right? So the polish, which is, uh, I smells like beeswax or something like this, and then you've got my hyper potion, which reduces scratches on holographic cards, which essentially is like buffing a scratch on your car. You know what I mean? You can kind of buff basically that top layer, and some of those scratches, not the deep ones, but the light ones, will go away. That is gray area. Now, mind you, if the card doesn't smell, it won't get popped. Where people fail on these things here is they sleeve the card immediately and ship it off, and then they get back in N5 and they're like, bro, what happened? And it's like, you take the card out and you can smell beeswax or whatever product was used on the card. So if you let the card air out before you submit it in, there's nothing they can do to detect this stuff.
Here's the thing. I don't want to be like the episode where we give you all the tips and tricks to get around all of like this is how you submit your cards with effects that they don't want you to do. But it doesn't sound like beeswax to me is not like a chemical compound that I would view as like having a negative impact on a card. I guess it like as far as like drastically changing or altering that card, but I guess it is a compound that if they found out it was on there, they would say no, not okay. But what is it doing? Is it just making like why are you putting on there other than like to you said on holographic cards you can put some stuff on there that makes it less like takes out the scratches. But what does like beeswax do to the card? Just make it shine more, or what's the effect?
I'll be perfectly honest. I think a lot of it is really placebo. But I think that there is a increases, there's certain types of card stocks where this does increase the shine. You'll quite commonly have things like dull backs on old vintage cards and things like that where this stuff really does help. However, when it comes to the front of a holographic card, which is plastic, there's not much you can do other than buffing scratches, right? So yeah, I mean, do we know the long-term effects of this stuff? I mean, Kurt's polish has been out there for quite some time, and I haven't seen any negative effects. But at the same time, I don't think we've actually like the big one, honestly, is the one that got PSA all riled up was the vintage sports card. It's a paper card, and it was soaked. There's like these crazy methods that people can do where they can soak a card and take a stain out, right? there was a famous card where the stain got removed, got slabbed, and then the stain came back. So my theory there is there was still some layer of coffee or whatever the heck it was. So on the top layers it was gone, but deep inside the paper fibers, as the card sat in the slab, came back out. Right. So in fact, I've got kind of an I don't sew cards, to be honest, but I'm doing my first experiment now with something where it's a Topps Chrome Pokemon card. And I've been just kind of, again, pushing the limits here. And I've run tons of experiments to just see what's possible and what's not. And yeah.
Do you like you're doing Topps Chrome? Like, is that I guess like to do a Topps card right now makes me think like, oh, if you can do that on a Pokemon card, you can do that on like a bunch of other cards. Do guys reach out that aren't just Pokemon collectors that do sports or anything else to get you to clean up their cards for them?
Yeah, sports is the big one. There's people. One Piece is huge now. Yu-Gi-Oh has a little small there's Magic. I've had everybody and anybody you can think of, but sports is a big one. In fact, there's someone in the hobby, I won't mention who, but they got a $20,000 basketball card sent to them to restore. Well, this restoration artist dropped the card on sandpaper. And I don't know why they had sandpaper on their desk, but destroyed this card. Now there's a lawsuit going on about this. So I think this is the first lawsuit ever in card restoration history, which is interesting. I'm following the case because I'm curious how it pans out, because although a lot of people in my industry get people to sign waivers, there are Supreme Court cases that talk about gross negligence, and a waiver doesn't protect you from gross negligence. They cite some car repair shop that screwed something up royally and they ended up winning or whatever. So yeah, sports is a big one, man. I mean, there are some massive cards out there, right? I mean, if you have something that can go from 8 to a 10, that could be a, you know, 5-6 figure difference in a particular card. Pokemon, yeah, there's expensive cards, don't get me wrong, but unless you're dealing with something like an illustrator or something like that, there's a certain point you get to where the grade doesn't even matter. It's more about the card, right? Um, and the risk is too high. Like, I won't touch anything that's super expensive like that because I just don't want to screw it up unless it's my card. I wreck my cards all the time for the sake of science, but yeah.
Have you ever had anybody reaching out for the service that has said, I want to use your service, but only if I can do it anonymously? Like that you won't tell anybody that I asked you for your service?
Happens a lot, yeah. And the big one is, can you fix whitening? A lot of people reach out because Pokemon cards are notorious for having white specks on the edge, right?
Yeah.
The only way to fix that is by coloring the card, and I refuse to do that just because I know what they're doing. They're gonna go grade it. Let's say it does get passed. That's fraud at that point, in my opinion. You've added something to the card, right? So
Yeah.
there are certain cases where I just don't take a job. In fact, there's a lot of cases where I don't because of things like that. Plus, people have unrealistic expectations. Like, quite commonly in this hobby, you'll have a wrecked card and they're like, can you turn this into a 10? And everyone wants a 10, right? And it's just like, doesn't work that way. I can get 5s to 9s, and very rarely like maybe a BGS 9.5 to a PSA 10. But normally those either require just pushing an edge down or whatever. Like, it's nothing crazy.
Now, I have seen more and more that there are guys who are creating parts of this or business in this hobby. They're creating business in this hobby by going out and finding cards that have lower grades, maybe at a card show or they see something online. It has a lower grade because it has maybe a little stain on there, or maybe it has a little whitening on the edge. And they are buying them for cheap because they know, or they think they know, that they could crack that open and do a little bit of repair work and then go and get it regraded and sell it for a premium. how much of what you do would you say that is the main intention of the customer?
95%. I mean, there's a great person out of Italy. His Captain Jack Parrott on Instagram. His name's Salvo. He is so pure in the hobby, and he loves fixing childhood cards. That's his like thing. If you have a childhood card, you put it in your pocket, you wrecked it. Like, I love that. There's that piece of it. There's those 5% outliers that they're like, hey, I love what you do. I wrecked my card as a kid. I just want it as in best condition as possible so I can give it to my kids, like slab it and give it to my kids. And I can appreciate that. So there are those, but yes, why are people doing this? Because they're making money, baby. I have a whole fat stack here, and these are all fixable cards, right? I got sports stuff I've picked up at card shows. There's a lot of opportunity out there. 4.5. It's got 8, 9, 8, but the only thing is the surface. You look at this card, I can't tell you what's wrong with it unless I get it out of here, because I guarantee the surface is, when I take this card out, it probably looks all wonky, right? Humidity, flatten, boom. Like this is a huge W. So there's people at card shows looking for opportunities like that, where the crux of innovations happening right now and all of this are creases, because there are ways to reduce them, and in some cases on certain card stocks there's ways to completely remove them. It's an arms race right now, guys. If you knew half the drama that's going on, people are keeping their cards close to their chest on their methods, and that's what I don't like about the hobby is well, I started a podcast that's dedicated to sharing knowledge, right? Cardboard Alchemist. Me and my buddy, we just talk about all the methods we're learning and we share it with everybody. But we press like, don't trim, don't color. We're trying to set the standard here of what's acceptable and what's not, which of course people are still gonna have their own opinions about, but we're trying to be the good Samaritans in what's going on here, because again, people are using things like car products. I've seen people using like straight up like wax from a car on a card, and I'm like, dude, like that has so much stuff in it that is going to wreck that card over time. So that's where it's getting really crazy, is people are just pushing it way too far, not doing their research, ripping people's heads off at card shows, not telling them. I've had people come up to my booth, say, did you do anything to this card? By the way, it's no, when I walk into a card show, there's no mystery who people know, and they either hate me or they love me. But I've told people straight up, yeah, I cleaned that card, and I've lost deals over it, but I'd rather be honest than be the person that is untruthful. Now, whether my clients are telling the person or not, probably not.
It's nice that you have like
Yeah.
a moral compass, it sounds like, and you have like you're not just willing to do anything to fix a card, even though it sounds like you could take more steps to fix a card to have a better grade, and maybe even steps that would still get graded. Like you could do things that would still get graded, even though you know blatantly it's wrong. But the fact that you are refusing business to do things like that, it does make me have a little bit different viewpoint of like where you were coming from with doing this business. Because honestly, I didn't know what to expect having you on here, Josh. Like I didn't know if you were going to be like, yeah, we'll do anything the customer wants if it means getting them a higher grade, so long as they pay the right amount. You know, like that's, I was fully prepared to like just be outing you and just say whatever we needed to warn the audience. But to know you've got like a limit, and it sounds like within reason, it doesn't sound like all the things you're doing are all that out there. They're not that liberal to me. It sounds relatively conservative, some of the things that you're applying to these cards and or methods that you're using to fix them. So I am very glad to hear that. But I am curious though, how many people would you say are out there that are, is it a higher or less amount of people that view what you do as acceptable? Is it like more than half the people or less than half the people that you run into?
To be honest, I don't have many, like nobody follows me to, okay, here, let me rewind that a little bit. I would say if I had to pull a number out, I would say maybe 5 to 10% of, well, maybe even lower. I would say maybe 5% of the comments I get might attack what I'm doing, right? You're altering, you're going to blah, blah, blah. Which, by the way, I don't grade for my clients. I fix your card, I send it to you, you do whatever the hell after that. So there's a lot of people in the industry of what I do, they grade the cards for them. I think that there's a huge liability in that. If the grading companies find out that you've been doing this to hundreds and hundreds of cards, especially if it's a $20,000 basketball card, there could be, because here's the deal, okay, guys, like PSA, these huge companies, they have insurance on these slabs. In fact, there was a Wilt Chamberlain recently that went from like a 10 to an 8 or something like that, right? And I don't know the whole story about that. I'm sorry, but bottom line, let's say that card was restored. You can better damn well be sure PSA is going to look at who sent this. And if they have reasonable cause, like you did something to this, and let's say they're on the line for $20,000 or whatever the value that was dropped, you can damn well better be sure that you'll get served because you were the one that graded. And if they have proof, here's the problem though: do they have proof? Now that's where it's very risky for me, right? I'm recording what I do. It's literally like incriminating evidence. So most of the things I do, if I do grade it, sit in my personal collection, right? Um, so there was a person, I won't say what company they worked for, but let's just say that company may or may not be auctioning off the Pikachu illustrator for Logan Paul. They have, I think, somebody that works there allegedly, maybe did work there or whatever. I don't know. This guy just had it out for me. Every single post, you're altering, blah, blah, blah. He kept tagging PSA. He knows, in fact, he wasn't even tagging PSA. He was tagging the person that was like high up there. So I got a letter one day and my account banned, right? And they basically said like, don't grade with us anymore or whatever. So I haven't been, yeah. But yeah, so that happened, and there have been other people, yeah.
Company said you cannot send cards in to be graded. We're not naming that company, it sounds like, but they did reach out and say, hey, we're keeping cards, or we're keeping a lookout. If we get a card from you, we're turning it back. Is that accurate?
Bingo. Yep. Any future accounts you create, any cards you send, you'll have to pay the shipping. We'll send it right back to you. And so I've basically just been, using other grading companies. If PSA wants to take that stance again, I actually emailed them. I said, listen, I don't color cards. I don't trim cards. Like I maybe the gray areas are things like fixing scratches and stuff, because you're removing material from the card. But as far as adding anything to the card, very seldom has that ever happened, in the sense of like I have glued a card once, but I didn't grade it. So again, I can see where they would have issues. It could come apart in the slab. So I always think about it. If I'm going to grade something, what could happen to the card over time of what I did to the card? And less is more in restoration, by the way. People, that's where I would want to hark. Like, some of the methods people are doing now are just way crazy because they're not thinking about the long-term effects on the card.
I know that this is so weird because, like, for instance, the comic book collectors, one of the common practices of a comic book collector when they go and get the comic book graded is their services for pressing the comic books before they go and get them graded. And I think even some grading companies, you can pay extra for them to press them and then get them graded. So why is that not taboo, and then doing something similar here taboo? It's a little weird, and I don't know of like where this thought process came from. And like Jesse's point, there is like a little bit of a moral compass saying that you refer to yourself as a restoration artist, that most of these restoration artists, do have like a, okay, I'm going to do this, but this is where the line is drawn. I'm not going to do this, and what have you. I wonder where that mindset or thought process, because even you send that message, we were both like, oh man, should we have him on? Like this could be a huge issue.
Yeah, no, I mean, you might get a comment or two of like, this guy is an idiot, but hey, hey, you know what, guys? Like, I'm here to answer the hard questions. There's a lot of people in what I do that hide in the shadows and don't like to talk about it. They're making a killing, but at the same time, like, there's no open discussion about this. Because to your point, comics, they're pressing stuff all day long. It's all good. So I think it's just a historical stance that cards have had, trading cards in particular, of old collectors. And there's been the split since day one. In fact, cert number one with PSA was a Hogness Wagner that was trimmed. So it's been happening since day one that cards have been, whether you call it altered or trimmed or whatever, things are happening to these cards. Now, mind you, if you listen to that story of that Hogness Wagner, it's very interesting. It was cut from an uncut sheet, right? So had the guy left it in the sheet, it would have been worth way more, by the way. But the card was literally cut from a sheet and then looked like a football. And the guy's like, I am not sending this to get graded. It looks like a football. So he literally just used a paper cutter and centered it and chipped it off and got it graded. But then later on, he gloated about it. Oh, I did this. And then boom, all this controversy, right?
I'd heard something about that before. I hadn't heard like the full detail of it like that. That's crazy. Kind of uncovered here, and what we continue to see in the hobby is there's gray areas with a lot of personal opinion on things. Now there's also rules. There's hard set rules that certain companies have, and there's things that people will still do to get around those rules that you can consider fraud or however you want. But it sounds like, to the best of what I'm hearing right now, if for the most case, you're not trying to get around those rules necessarily in most situations. It sounds like you're following those rules by doing, not adding or taking away from the card, just maybe methods of cleaning the card or taking out dents. I think the grayest area that I've heard so far is like maybe the waxing and things like that on the card, which, that is something, for me, it's like, I don't know if it would even add enough for me to like really find the value, because it's, at the end of the day, personally, I know it's like, I don't want to feel like, oh, I'm going to get caught doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. Like, I want to be able to enjoy the hobby, even if like I might have a different take or opinion than someone else. I still want to enjoy it within the confines of the rules that have been set out. Now, granted, if there's a gray area that there's not a rule on, I'm okay with like maybe giving a little bend here and there if it's within reason. Like, if someone has a problem with like cleaning a card because it's got like some dirt on it or something like that, I don't have as much of a problem with that. So it's weird because we live in a where we're participating in a hobby where people have a lot of very strong opinions, and they'll let you know all about them, as you well know. But uh from my point of view, I don't view some of what this is, what a lot of what you've been talking about, as straight up card alteration. I do think for the large part it is a restorative process without going as far as to say you are adding or taking away something that wasn't supposed to be there. So yeah, I guess, I feel good about this conversation. I feel good about having you on and talking about this, because I do think there is a gray area, and I think you're living well within it. But I think you're still on the more acceptable side of things. At least now, who cares what I think, right? This is just my personal viewpoint, but I think for a lot of people, they'd probably agree.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, if you can't tell anything's been done to the card, then that's you you did it. You did the best job possible, right? So that's where, again, I think more research needs to be done, especially on the pressing side. And probably we could pull some pages from the comic world too, because again, like over pressing a card, not drawing the card properly, those are some risky things. And I think people that do what I do, they're jumping headfirst into this game without really putting in the work to hone in the methods and to ensure that they're not slabbing things that can have long-term effects. So I would just urge, like, if anybody's planning on doing this or getting into this, it's not like you can just jump in day one and start doing this, right? Like even by the way, where you live, what's the humidity like in Nashville? Is Okay, which Vegas, by the way, is dry as hell, right? So even those sorts of factors can actually affect a card. So the most expensive card I worked on was a Gold Star Rayquaza that probably went from like a $4,000 card to maybe a $14,000 card. So I got rid of a crease on that thing. It was a beautiful condition, but it had a crease on the front. And I removed it. What's interesting, by the way, guys, the owner of that card is very, very high up in this industry. You would never guess. I can't say unfortunately, but when this guy reached out, it was his butler, by the way, that reached out. I was like, holy cow. Hey, yeah, right. Yeah. It's Jesse didn't tell you. Okay, well, cat's out of the bag. No, yeah. Yeah. What's the name of Batman's butler? I'm trying to think of a good butler. Alfred, yeah. Yeah. Or Smithers butler, yeah. So but yeah, I normally don't take cards like that, guys. Like I'll maybe like 3,000 or somewhere around there is kind of like okay. You know, unless this is going to make good content or you maybe got referred, then maybe I'll consider more. But I don't think I'd touch, especially after this lawsuit I've been following. I don't think I'm going to touch anything over like 10,000, just because I look at it like, okay, if I do screw it up, what can I eat as far as like if I had to cough up value, uh that I wouldn't put my family in jeopardy. I have 2 kids, a family, I have 2 freaking full-time jobs, it seems like, and I'm doing all this crap. I'm way overextended. I'm starting PCRcard.com, which is the first card restoration grading company. So we'll actually fix your card and slab it. I'm doing a lot here, guys. Like, yeah, I got the podcast, I've got so I'm juggling a lot, but I'm having fun, guys. Like that's the whole thing. It's like Wild West. Like I come from a programming background and it's very like here are the rules, here's what you can do. But with card restoration, it's kind of like there's not a lot of information about this, and I feel like I'm kind of pioneering a lot of this, which is the exciting part of all of this, you know.
Yeah, I know like the most of the companies will say no, that's not the case. You know, we'll do it on a independent basis. We're not going to prejudge it based on the previous grade. I think like if they were doing that, hey, this is life or death. We want you to grade it this way. Don't pay any attention to the previous grade. I think they could definitely do it. But when you have so many cards to grade, hundreds of thousands of cards to grade in a week or whatever the case may be, I don't think they can help it. I think like the average guy who's doing the grading, they're going to see, oh, this is in this slab. I've got 400 other cards I got to get out this week. This is a 4, not a 5. You know, if in that similar situation. So, yeah, just from my personal viewpoint, I think I would be surprised that they could get away from that bias because I don't know how you can take that out.
So if you sent me that DM said I think this can be a 10, I wouldn't even answer you, by the way. I'm just saying, like I get that all the time. I think this can be a 10. You did, yeah. Okay. Well, so don't do that. Don't say, hey, I think this can be a 10 if you're gonna reach out to somebody. But yeah, so here's the thing. There are things you can fix and can't fix. Like I said, whitening is the big one. If you look at the back of that card and let's say there's a crease or something, if there is any whitening along that crease, not even worth it. The problem there is because I've done it where I've gotten a crease completely out, but you can see a trace line of white where the crease was. They will call it altered. They will find like, hey, there was a crease. Like, hey guys, see what you're doing, and boom, you'll get that card sent right back. Now you got a card that's altered, and you're out even more than leaving it in the slab. So that's one thing to take a look at. The other is just really like, what are you doing it for? I can see if you're selling it. If you've already slabbed your childhood card, leave it. In fact, sometimes I even tell people, do you really want to fix your childhood card? Like, you have Cheeto dust on it. Isn't there something enduring about, like, you know, like the original condition and whatever? So sometimes I try to steer people to just like, hey, just grade it. If it's profit motivation, then yeah, I mean, there's certain things you want to take a look at in the card. So if you have things like spider creases, there's just creases everywhere, or paint missing from the front. The big one's paint. If paint's missing without adding paint, there's not much you can do. So you really just have to take a look at the card. What I like to do, honestly, if you get a flashlight or a good one like this, I sell these on my site, but it's like a side flashlight. And you just kind of like look at the card from the side in the slab. That's a really great way to see if there's indents, creases, things like that. That can be fixed. But if you see paint missing, don't even try. Like I bought a Gold Star Rayquaza. It was a PSA 2 before the prices went crazy, and cleaned it, did everything. Card looked great, but there was paint missing all over the front. It was all scratched up to begin with. Got back the same grade, right? So it was kind of like a moot point at that. You know, there's certain points where if the card's just missing a bunch of paint, there's not much you can do there. Yeah. Uh-huh. Don't do that. Yeah. So always, yeah, well, you should. Okay. I'll tell you a story because I've actually talked to PSA graders, ex PSA graders anyway. And if you send a slab to a grading company for cross grading and it's already got a grade on it, and let's say I sent this to PSA, they're going to already in their head, they go, oh, 4.5. And all grading companies think we're better than the competition. So they're going to look at this and they're going to give you the 4 because there's already a grade on it. They're better than that company. They're more strict than they are. They're going to take whatever that number is and give you a slightly lower because their conditions are whatever. I'm sure there's outliers in that. You need to give them the mystery of it. Without the grade, you need to crack it and send it.
I think when they have their hobby hats on, they hate it, but when they have their business hats on, they are pleading the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but Josh, man, thank you for coming on. Thank you for kind of giving a little bit of more detail of what it's like from your point of view in the hobby as someone who's trying to do their best to stay within the guidelines of restoration, but still provide some service and value to the collector. If guys want to check out your podcast, you said it was a Cardboard Alchemy. Is that what you said?
Yeah. I mean, they have 30 to 60 seconds to look at a card. There was a card I fixed for somebody where there was a tiny, tiny crease on the edge that wouldn't come out. They sent it in 3 times, got a 6. On the 4th attempt, they got it back a 9. The final grade, they just didn't see that tiny little crease, right? It's subjective. Bottom line, humans are going to miss things sometimes, right? So I always suggest turn the lights off in your room, get something like an overhead light, and that's the best way, or a simple source, and that's exactly what the graders are doing. They're not using 100x magnification. They're not like CT scanning the card and da-da-da-da. Like, there are crazy pieces of equipment, but they only do that for super duper expensive cards. Anything under probably like $5,000, 30, 60 seconds. If something looks questionable, yes, they will get a second opinion from another grader, that sort of thing. You know, when they get a card, especially when they're looking for things, they're looking at the edges of the card. Is black core bleeding from the card? Because there's a black core layer in Pokemon cards. When people soak these things, they get wrecked. There's black that just bleeds out. That's why you never want to soak a Pokemon card unless it's a Topps card that doesn't have a black core layer. But you know, they're going to look for alterations. That's step 1. Like, did this card get messed with? So there's certain things you just got to, like, you know, if you were to take a look at that card, crack it, send it to PSA, I wouldn't be surprised you get probably 2 different grades if you sent it in 3 or 4 times, right? So, but you're going to eat the 150 every time sending that card, and it's so dang expensive, right? So I have a conspiracy that PSA and all these guys love what I do, because people are just cracking stuff and resubmitting to them, and they're making a boatload more money. Because yeah. Cardboard Alchemists, we're on YouTube and Patreon. We have a free episode that drops every Monday, and Sebastian and I talk about all things in the space that we're in, as well as Pokemaster Center. You can catch my I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So yeah, if you want to learn more about this stuff, check it out. I do. Do you guys have a couple more minutes? Because I want to geek out with you guys a little bit. It is my childhood Game Gear in here. Yeah. So I'm curious, what were your guys' like favorite consoles as a kid? Whoever had the idea of this controller, because when this controller came out, it was like, what the heck? In fact, I played with my son and he was just so confused holding it. Like nowadays, these iPad kids, it's like but even like an Xbox controller, this is just, it's just a wild design. These are PHP elephants. So PHP is a programming language. And I've been speaking at conferences for over 10 years. So I do, in fact, I was going to do tech, like social media before I got into the Pokemon game. And I'm kind of glad I did, because tech doesn't age very well as far as like content's concerned. So this is a one-of-one. I actually made this one for my user group. I do a free monthly meetup here in Vegas for people wanting to learn how to program. And when I was going to college over 10 years ago, there was no local meetup. So I wanted to inspire kids or even adults to, learn how to program and stuff like that, because it changed my life. I was, doing dead end jobs before I got into tech. So that's what that collection is. And I do have and then we can call it after that. But I do want to share a couple of things here. By the way, this terrified me as a kid. So my parents wouldn't let me watch it in theaters, which I was really bummed about, because I really wanted to watch it. But I think when this movie dropped, they were telling parents, don't take your kids to go. It did very poorly in the box office. But rewatching it, it's a banger. I don't know that and we were broke as hell, but eventually they got me the VHS, which but I've rewatched the movie, and I can tell, like, I think the director did like a lot of darker movies, and they just probably chose the wrong director, but for a kids movie anyway. But this new Mario movie that came out, blockbuster, right? Like, they did it right with this last one. Just collect what you love. Have fun with your kids. Like, that's like the key to this. That's the part that I'm really bummed about is, the kids in the hobby just can't get a hold of a box to open up,
So that was Josh from Pokemaster Center. Obviously, we got a good understanding that I still can't say like I would necessarily subscribe to everything that he's doing. But as far as like a process of like adding humidity to take out a dent, or like pushing on a card like to make sure like it stays together, I don't know. Like if I see a little speck of cardboard that somehow got this hanging on by a strand when I pull a card out of a pack, which has happened tons of times, if I just pull that out, that doesn't feel like I'm altering that card, right? So it's like, I don't know. There's like we talked about, a lot of gray area, but overall, it's nice to know like where he's coming from. So I've got a couple other things, and then I'm realizing like that interview was very long. Like we don't have like we're already pushing an hour and a half as is. I mean, I don't want to go too much longer just because yeah, well, I think we have to really consider doing 2 episodes a week, and that may just be us doing like a longer, like just recording longer and then dividing it into two or something. But the largest sale for a president was recorded here just recently. It was a 2012 Pop Century Donald J. Trump card that just sold as a Beckett 9. Any guesses on what the price of that card was?
Did you tell me how much you paid for that card?
Ray's fun. It's fun to be fun.
No, I would say let's go with $10,000.
$10,000. That's close. You got close, Ray. $500,000. I kid you not. It's a one of one, and it's an autograph. But if we know anything about Leaf and Pop Century, we know that there's often many one of ones. Now, granted, this is from 2012. Maybe this is before they were doing a lot of one of ones, but I've seen a number of Pop Century Trump cards that are autos. Granted, this is before he was a president. He was doing this more in the sense because he was on The Apprentice. That's why this card existed. Yeah, I think I read some of the comments. I think most of the comments were in line with, can you believe he paid $500,000 for his own card? You know, like that's like most people were just making the assumption that he bought his own card. Who knows? Maybe this is something we see on the Oval Office shelves one day when they're doing a newsroom interview. But yeah, kind of crazy that that happened, and I felt like we needed to bring a little attention to it. So you know what? Let us know in the
Can you do
comments.
a Donald
Would you
J.
spend
Trump
$500,000 on a president card? That's something I think we all need to know an answer to. So obviously Ray would, because dang, I can't make the same joke that you made. I was just gonna say you bought the card, but you already made it. So
I would like to get all the presidents, like a collection of the ones that have been assassinated. I think that would be kind of
you're
cool.
a sick puppy. You know that? You love.
I think that would be cool.
I know you do, you psycho.
Abraham Lincoln.
I don't think they're signing anymore. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, you had a couple other things. You want to hit those, or do you want to save any?
I did. I'll just save a lot of things for next episode, but I do want to talk about the Target bait and switch for Pokemon cards. I don't know if you heard about this, Jesse, but Target was going to release prismatic ETBs and 151 Pokemon ETBs for pre-order, but the stipulation was that you had to sign up for their, I think they call it their Circle membership for Target. And they took all those pre-orders down and everyone signed up for their membership, and now they are not going to release them. So there is a class action lawsuit for what do they call it? False advertising.
Wow, that's crazy. You know what? That's not cool. It's not. I don't think that's okay. I'm kind of glad that that's happening. I don't know what to think. Like as far as like if they were going to put those out, I'm kind of glad they didn't, because I'm tired of the population of these cards continuing to get watered down. Granted, more and more people, like there's still tons of people that want them, so maybe it's not that bad of a thing. But man, that is kind of crazy that they were going to put out more ETBs of it, and now they're going to be sued about it. So
I think the rumor and the speculation was beforehand that they were going to have, maybe they found some stock and they were going to put it out there. And that's how they were pushing their memberships. They said, okay, maybe we'll have like 1,000 ETBs and we'll just throw them out there, first come, first serve. But let's try to pump some of these memberships, you know? But I don't know what happened. And they just took everything down. So nobody was able to purchase anything. And you probably have thousands of people that signed up for these memberships anticipating that they were going to purchase these 151 and prismatic Pokemon cards, and it didn't happen. So yeah, class action lawsuit happening for Target. Man, Target's really dropped the ball on a lot of what would you call it, public perspective issues. They've been dropping the ball on a lot of stuff lately.
Well,
so
I mean, here's the thing. They'll either get it right, or guess what? They're going to be working themselves out of the hobby for, well, that's not true. As long as they get product, nobody cares. That's the problem. Nobody cares. No one cares about anything anybody does, so long as they continue to get benefits from them. And I don't care for that. That's a more cynical attitude that I don't typically, I think a lot of cynical things. I don't always like to voice them.
What's your cynical meter?
What's my cynical meter?
I think you're like an 8.
Dude, if it's like just me and you personal conversation one-on-one, I'll let my negative cynical side fly. Like I will let my freak flag negativity fly all day, because it's like I do see it, but I don't do that as publicly because I don't like it. Like I know like my voice carries weight in certain circles, and I don't want it to be perceived as like, oh, me being negative about whatever. Now, granted, I don't like to view myself as a negative person in general, but I am often thinking of like the devil's advocate. I like to think of like, okay, that's like the most positive situation, but what's the flip side? What else could happen? So there is a part of me that is like, yeah, I do view things from that side of the a different angle. However, I will typically, after I've noticed, like, oh, I've gone negative, I'll try and steer the conversation back. So, that all being the
You want to
case,
be, yeah.
this podcast is about the positivity most of the time. And occasionally I will go on a negative rant and then I have to rein myself back in. So,
I'm here to rein you back in. Jesse.
I appreciate you reining me. Is that REIN? Is that how you spell REIGN?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. All right. This has been a great
clue.
podcast for a snow day. I want to say for an ice storm podcast,
Dude,
I think this was fantastic.
I think so. I think we've learned a lot. And
I'm looking forward to next week when we got that. Well, Gary Vee won't be on the pod next week. We are going to record it next week. So, well, actually, I don't know. Maybe no. We said we're going to record it on the 2nd. We're going to release it on the 9th. That way it's ready for like it's right before the spectacular series releases so that they can get a little promotion out there. But I want to talk to him. The guy apparently loves all kinds of non-sport cards. He loves more vintage stuff. I want to talk about that. I want to talk to him about like sticker licensing. If there's like a reason why, if that's the reason why they're making stickers is just because of the whole business side of things, or if there's another reason, if they're trying to grow the popularity of that too. But yeah, I look forward to that interview. So next week's episode is going to be pretty cool. To make sure you guys hear it, or the next couple weeks episode, I should say. To make sure you hear it though, be sure you are subscribing and or liking, turning on notifications, doing whatever you do, whatever it is that you're doing, guys. It's helping. We appreciate it very much. Commenting, yeah.
I think we should do a comment of the week.
Oh yeah, okay. I like that. So if you want to comment either on the YouTube or on like say the Spotify, there's a Spotify comment section. You can listen on Spotify if you didn't know that for free. We get all of our data, our analytic data through Spotify, so that's why I say that. But yeah, that all that stuff helps us, guys. And what really helps is sharing it with other people. If you share it with other people, you heard something you like, you think they might like it too, that helps us tremendously. Seriously. So, anyways.
Yeah. Shirley down at the Kroger, if you want to share it to her.
Yeah. She said her grandson has been itching for some new Pokemon cards and just doesn't know which ones to buy. So she needs your help in finding out. So send this over to her, and then she can figure out how she can fix all her old collection as well from our guests today. So that'll be perfect. All right, guys, this has been Hobby Nonsense. I'm Jesse. That's Ray. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Goodbye.